The day the alien emissaries arrived was unlike any other the humans had experienced. The sky shimmered with strange lights, colors that no human eye had ever seen, dancing across the horizon like ribbons of fire. At first, no one knew what to make of it. The children stopped playing, the workers froze mid-task, and even the most experienced settlers looked up in awe and fear. Then the massive shapes descended from the sky, graceful yet intimidating, moving with a precision that was both beautiful and terrifying. The humans instinctively took cover, but curiosity quickly overcame fear. The emissaries were unlike anything described in the human data files. They were tall and slender, with bodies that seemed almost translucent, allowing one to see faint patterns moving beneath their skin like flowing rivers of light. Their faces, if they could be called faces, had eyes that reflected the stars themselves, and mouths that opened and closed in ways humans could barely comprehend. They moved in silence, gliding just above the ground, their feet never touching the rocky surface. Their arrival was calm, deliberate, and yet every motion carried the authority of beings who had traveled light years and seen countless civilizations rise and fall. Mara, still at her communication console, felt her heart pound as she realized the moment of first contact had arrived. She had spent nights imagining this encounter, wondering if the aliens would be hostile, indifferent, or friendly. Now facing them, she understood that imagination could never have prepared her for the reality. The emissaries observed everything, scanning the colony with devices that projected faint beams of light, reading structures, materials, even the humans themselves. The settlers, though wary, were ready. After years of surviving on a hostile planet, they had learned that courage often meant standing firm in the face of the unknown. The initial attempts at communication were tentative. The humans offered simple gestures, raising hands, signaling peace, showing their work in living spaces. The aliens responded with patterns of light and sound that the human translators struggled to decode. Despite the language barrier, a fragile understanding began to form. The aliens conveyed that they were here to help, to provide resources and knowledge that could ensure the humans' survival. Relief swept through the colony like a sudden warm wind. After weeks of anxiety, they were finally not alone. However, the humans' methods of living and surviving immediately challenged the aliens' expectations. When the emissaries moved closer to examine the food gardens, the settlers began demonstrating their irrigation methods. It was simple by human standards, involving rudimentary piping and collection of condensed moisture, but it worked. The aliens observed in disbelief as the humans dug trenches through rock and soil with tools that seemed primitive but somehow effective. The humans' resilience was obvious in every movement, the way they climbed jagged cliffs to collect minerals, the way they repaired broken equipment with makeshift parts, the way they organized themselves without hierarchy yet with remarkable efficiency. But the first misunderstanding happened almost immediately. One of the humans, trying to demonstrate how they collected water, accidentally caused a small explosion. It was harmless to the humans, a controlled release of pressure to access a subterranean reservoir. But the aliens interpreted it as an attack. Their senses blared warnings, their bodies tensed, and for a tense moment, it seemed that the encounter could spiral into disaster. Mara rushed forward, hands raised, speaking in the universal symbols of peace she had learned. Slowly, the aliens relaxed, and it became clear that the humans' methods were unconventional but not malicious. Over the next few days, the aliens tried to assist the humans, offering advanced tools and technologies. They presented machines that could purify water more efficiently, devices that could grow food in less hospitable soil, and energy sources that were far beyond human engineering. Yet, whenever these technologies were introduced, the humans modified them. They would take apart alien devices, sometimes destroying the original function, and rebuild them in ways that suited their unique needs. To the aliens, it was shocking. They had expected compliance, a fragile species that would accept assistance passively. Instead, they saw humans testing, experimenting, and improvising with complete disregard for the instructions provided. One evening, a small group of emissaries visited the children's play area, curious about human behavior. The children, unafraid and curious, approached the aliens, offering small trinkets they had crafted. The emissaries tried to communicate, projecting images and sounds, but the children responded with laughter and gestures that defied translation. The aliens documented this behavior meticulously, noting the human tendency to explore, to interact physically with their environment, and to challenge boundaries in ways that were unpredictable. It became clear that human survival depended not just on tools and planning, but on an innate creativity and adaptability that could not be replicated by machines or rigid logic. The aliens began to record the humans' daily routines in detail. They observed how adults moved with purpose yet flexibility, how they could switch between tasks seamlessly, and how even in exhaustion, humans maintained focus when survival was at stake. One scientist noted that humans seemed to possess an extraordinary tolerance for risk, a quality that, while reckless, allowed them to thrive where others would fail. The emissaries started to understand that helping humans was not simply about providing resources. It required accepting their unique methods and sometimes even letting the humans do things that seemed destructive or inefficient by alien standards. A major turning point occurred when the aliens tried to install an energy grid to improve the colony's power supply. The humans, eager to help, began adjusting the equipment with a mixture of ingenuity and impatience. They rerouted cables, combined alien technology with their own inventions, and tested the system in ways that made the emissaries' sensors emit constant alerts. Finally, when the energy system came online, it worked not as the aliens had designed, but in a way that suited human needs perfectly. The aliens recorded this incident as highly anomalous, noting the humans' ability to understand, modify, and optimize systems far beyond what their physical appearance or prior knowledge suggested. Yet not all interactions were smooth. There were mistakes and accidents that caused minor damage to alien equipment. Sometimes, humans' efforts to improve efficiency led to unintended consequences, like flooding a storage chamber or triggering alarms throughout the colony. Each incident caused tension and required careful negotiation, teaching the aliens an important lesson. Humans could not be controlled, and attempts to impose rigid order often failed. Instead, they needed guidance, cooperation, and trust. Over time, even the most skeptical emissaries began to admire the human spirit, recognizing that their survival instincts, resourcefulness, and adaptability were unlike anything observed elsewhere. Despite the chaos, bonds began to form. The emissaries started to appreciate human humor, their small rituals, and their acts of kindness. Even in extreme conditions, humans shared meals prepared from scarce resources, taught aliens simple songs, and explained the delicate balance they maintained to survive on their harsh planet. For the first time, some emissaries realized that humans were not merely fragile beings in need of aid. They were a force that could teach others about resilience and creativity under pressure. During one critical moment, a storm of unprecedented intensity struck the colony. Winds tore through shelters, equipment was scattered, and the thin atmosphere caused panic among those unprepared for such violence. The humans, however, responded swiftly and efficiently, moving through the storm to secure structures, rescue children, and maintain essential systems. The aliens watched, stunned, as humans demonstrated courage and decisiveness that exceeded the abilities of many of their own species. It was a defining moment. The emissaries realized that human survival was not luck, but a combination of instinct, ingenuity, and an unyielding will to endure. As days turned into weeks, the aliens compiled extensive reports, documenting human behavior, strengths, and weaknesses. They communicated with their home worlds, sharing observations that challenged long-held assumptions about life, intelligence, and resilience. The humans, unaware of the magnitude of these records, continued their work, living each day with the quiet determination that had allowed them to survive so far. To them, it was simply life hard, relentless, and demanding, but also filled with small triumphs that made every hardship worthwhile. The relationship between humans and the alien emissaries had transformed. What began as a simple act of providing aid had become a mutual exchange of knowledge, respect, and astonishment. The aliens had come expecting fragile beings, helpless and incapable of independent action. Instead, they had discovered a species that, while appearing weak, possessed an extraordinary capacity for adaptation, innovation, and survival. That humans had proven that they could thrive in environments that should have destroyed them, and in doing so, they had changed the way an entire civilization viewed life itself. The humans, for their part, remained largely unaware of the impression they had made. They continued to work, play, and care for each other, driven by necessity and instinct. They did not realize that their small, everyday acts of survival were being recorded and studied across the stars. They did not know that their courage, ingenuity, and resilience would soon become legendary in alien chronicles. And yet, through every interaction, every misunderstanding, and every triumph, they were laying the foundation for a story that would astonish the galaxy, a story that began with a simple SOS and continued through first contact, demonstrating that the human spirit was not just surviving, but thriving, in ways that defied all expectations. Life on the barren planet continued under the watchful eyes of the alien emissaries, but it had begun to change in ways no one could have predicted. The humans were no longer just a fragile colony in need of assistance. They were active participants, shaping their environment and, inadvertently, testing the patience and expectations of their alien visitors. Every day brought new experiments, new challenges, and new surprises, and the aliens soon realized that helping humans was not a simple task. It required understanding a species that thrived on unpredictability and improvisation. At first, the aliens attempted to integrate themselves more fully into the colony's daily life. They offered tools and devices to make tasks easier, hoping that by providing superior technology, they could reduce the risk of accidents. One device was a soil analyzer, designed to optimize planting and irrigation. Humans received it with cautious curiosity. They studied it carefully, testing its functions, poking and prodding it in ways that the aliens had not anticipated. Instead of simply following the instructions, humans dismantled part of it, replacing some components with materials they had scavenged from the planet. The resulting device worked differently than intended. but it served their purposes remarkably well. The emissaries observed this with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. The humans' methods were effective, yes, but completely unpredictable. This unpredictability soon led to the first real signs of escalation. The humans' survival strategies were designed for extreme environments, for rapid responses to threats, and for exploiting resources in ways the aliens would never consider. Small actions like creating new pathways through rocky terrain, redirecting water sources, or burning brush to prevent larger fires began to affect the colony's surroundings in unexpected ways. Alien equipment, calibrated for precision, often malfunctioned when placed in these altered conditions. What the humans saw as simple survival adjustments were interpreted by the aliens as dangerous interference. Sensors blared alarms, and careful monitoring records showed rising levels of strain on systems designed to support the colony. One particularly striking incident involved a large irrigation project. The humans had identified a dried riverbed where they believed water could be trapped and stored for months. The aliens had originally warned against it, citing potential disruption to underground ecosystems they had detected. The humans, confident in their ability to manage the risk, proceeded anyway. They dug channels, reinforced reservoirs, and used controlled explosions to redirect the flow. The result was a sudden surge of water that overflowed into alien monitoring stations, short-circuiting sensitive equipment. The emissaries were alarmed, but the humans celebrated the success. For them, it was not destruction, it was survival, an essential step in ensuring their continued existence on a planet that refused to give them mercy. The aliens began to understand that human ingenuity was both a blessing and a danger. Unlike most species they had encountered, humans were willing to take extreme measures for survival. They did not calculate risk in the same way the aliens did. Instead, they acted decisively, adapting to immediate challenges with whatever resources were available. When an alien advisor suggested slowing the pace of human activity to avoid further damage, another countered that the humans' speed and decisiveness were precisely what kept them alive. This tension between caution and admiration became a recurring theme in their reports. In the colony itself, daily life had become a careful balance between resourcefulness and chaos. Humans continued to repair equipment, grow food, and construct new shelters, but they also experimented with alien technologies in ways that frequently defied logic. One engineer combined an alien heating device with a solar collection system, creating a hybrid unit that could heat water while simultaneously charging batteries. The system was unstable at first, causing sparks and small fires, but eventually, the humans perfected it. The emissaries documented the process with intense interest, noting that human creativity often involved trial and error that would be considered reckless by alien standards, but ultimately produced results that were astonishing. Meanwhile, tensions began to emerge between the humans and the aliens on a social level as well. The aliens valued order, precision, and predictability, while humans thrived in improvisation and flexibility. A routine check of energy distribution, intended to prevent shortages, became a chaotic scene when humans rearranged power conduits to better suit their own needs. Sparks flew, alarms sounded, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if disaster was imminent. But within hours, the humans had not only repaired the system but improved it, creating a network that provided more energy than the original design could. The aliens, observing this, realized that attempts to impose strict control were futile. Humans were adaptive, and their intelligence was inseparable from their tendency to challenge limits. Even the children contributed to this escalation in subtle ways. They explored, played, and experimented, sometimes wandering into areas that were dangerous or interfering with equipment. What seemed reckless to the emissaries was actually another form of learning. The humans had grown up in harsh conditions, and exploration was a survival skill. They tested boundaries, learned from mistakes, and taught each other practical lessons that no formal instruction could provide. The aliens began to recognize that these small actions, though seemingly minor, were part of the larger pattern of human resilience and adaptability. The first clear moment of conflict arose when humans attempted to repair a damaged communications array with improvised parts. The emissaries had warned that this could destabilize the system, yet the humans proceeded. The resulting interference temporarily blocked messages from reaching orbit, forcing the aliens to intervene. They arrived to find humans calmly working amidst sparks and smoke, entirely unconcerned about the alarms going off. One human engineer explained their reasoning simply. The array needed to function in the real conditions of the planet, not in the controlled simulations of the aliens. What the humans saw as practicality, the aliens initially saw as recklessness, and yet the system ultimately worked better than it ever had. As these incidents accumulated, the aliens' initial admiration was tinged with worry. That humans were effective, yes, but they were also unpredictable and potentially destructive. A series of minor accidents flooded storage chambers, collapsed pathways, overtaxed energy grids demonstrated that human problem-solving often created new challenges. The emissaries began discussing contingency plans, how to limit damage without restricting human creativity. how to protect their own equipment while still allowing humans to act freely. It was a delicate balance, and one that required constant observation. Despite the tension, there were also remarkable moments of cooperation. The aliens learned from humans, adopting some of their methods for dealing with the harsh environment. One emissary, inspired by the humans' ability to extract water from seemingly dry rocks, began testing new collection techniques that could be used on their own worlds. The humans, in turn, accepted guidance on energy storage, food preservation, and structural safety, creating a hybrid system that combined the best of both species' knowledge. This mutual exchange was rare in the galaxy, and the emissaries recorded it as a unique and valuable opportunity. However, the pace of change on the colony was relentless. That humans need to adapt quickly to exploit opportunities for survival sometimes caused more widespread disruption than intended. Trees planted for food were accidentally uprooted during construction projects. Small fires meant to clear brushful pathways spread farther than anticipated. Alien sensors repeatedly recorded fluctuations in environmental conditions, all caused by human activity. To the emissaries, it seemed like chaos, but to the humans, it was simply life and natural consequence of survival in a world that demanded constant action. The humans' ability to thrive in adversity became even more apparent during a period of severe storms. Heavy winds and acid rain battered the colony, damaging structures and equipment. While the aliens moved cautiously, concerned about potential losses, the humans sprang into action. They reinforced shelters, repaired broken energy lines, and diverted water away from critical areas. Even in the face of extreme danger, they remained calm, calculating risks and taking decisive action. The emissaries observed that human survival was not accidental. It was a combination of courage, adaptability, and relentless problem-solving. The colony had grown stronger, more organized, and more self-reliant, but it had also begun to demonstrate its potential for wider disruption. The humans' actions, though intended for survival, were beginning to affect the alien systems and environment around them in ways that no one had predicted. The emissaries recorded everything meticulously, noting that while humans were remarkable survivors, their ingenuity came with an inherent risk. Their actions could escalate beyond control, reshaping not just their immediate surroundings, but potentially entire regions of the planet. The humans, for their part, remained largely unaware of the scale of these observations. They continued to work, live, and play with the same determination that had brought them this far. Every step, every innovation, every minor accident was part of their ongoing struggle to survive. The aliens, while impressed, were forced to reconsider their original assumptions. These humans, fragile by appearance, were anything but weak. Their methods might be chaotic, their experiments reckless, but their results were undeniable. Humans were not simply surviving, they were mastering survival, and in doing so, they were beginning to leave a mark on a planet that had once seemed impossible to inhabit. The humans' resourcefulness, creativity, and willingness to take risks had not only ensured their survival but had also begun to challenge the aliens' understanding of life, intelligence, and adaptation. What had started as simple first contact had escalated into something far greater, a demonstration of human capability that would soon shock even the most experienced observers, setting the stage for events that none could have predicted. Life on the harsh, rocky planet had already been difficult for the human settlers, but the arrival of the aliens had brought a mixture of hope and new challenges. The humans had survived extreme conditions, learned to grow food in barren soil, and created systems for water, energy, and shelter that no outsider could have imagined. Yet their presence, combined with their unique survival strategies, was beginning to have effects far beyond what anyone had anticipated. That humans were no longer simply living, they were reshaping the environment in ways that would soon lead to unexpected consequences. The escalation that had begun in earlier interactions now reached a critical point. Humans, driven by instinct and ingenuity, continued to experiment with the alien technologies and the planet's natural resources. Their goals were simple: survive, thrive, and protect the colony. But the scale of their actions grew larger than before. They redirected rivers to improve irrigation, cleared lands to create larger fields, and built defensive structures to withstand the storms that regularly battered the planet. To the humans, these measures were necessary and logical. To the aliens, watching from above, these actions were beginning to look dangerously disruptive. One morning, Mara and her team decided to expand the colony's energy production. The planet's thin atmosphere and weak sunlight made traditional solar panels less effective. So the humans combined alien energy converters with rock turbines that could extract power from wind currents. The project required blasting through rock and redirecting channels of air, a method that had worked on smaller scales before. That humans carefully calculated the risks and proceeded. The results were spectacular. The energy output doubled, and the colony had enough power to expand its facilities. Yet the alien emissaries' sensors immediately flagged multiple environmental warnings. The red markers lit up, underground caverns shifted, air currents altered, and delicate ecosystems that had gone unnoticed were destabilized. It was the first clear sign that the humans' efforts, while ingenious, were capable of causing widespread damage. The aliens tried to intervene, suggesting alternative methods that would minimize environmental disruption, but the humans, trusting their instincts and experience from surviving in harsh conditions, chose to follow their own approach. They argued that their methods had worked before, that improvisation and adaptation were key to survival. The emissaries had no choice but to watch as the humans continued their work, understanding that interference could slow progress but not stop it. The next few weeks saw a rapid series of developments. Humans constructed a series of water reservoirs by diverting streams, creating controlled flooding in areas that had previously been dry. They built terraces and channels in rocky hillsides to prevent soil erosion and ensure crops would grow. On the surface, these measures were brilliant. Crops thrived, energy and water supplies stabilized, and the colony grew stronger. However, the alien observers noticed the unintended consequences. Natural habitats for native creatures were destroyed, underground aquifers shifted, and small seismic disturbances were recorded for the first time. What the humans viewed as simple survival efforts were now beginning to be labeled by the aliens as environmental devastation. One of the most dramatic moments came when the humans decided to expand the colony's mining operations. They needed rare minerals to repair equipment and construct new technologies. Unlike the aliens, who mined cautiously and methodically, the humans were practical and relentless. They used controlled explosions, digging tunnels quickly and efficiently, often ignoring the long-term structural consequences. At first, the emissaries tried to advise them on safer methods, but the humans' priorities were clear: immediate survival and growth. The tunnels provided the necessary resources, but they also triggered small landslides and destabilized parts of the rocky terrain. To the aliens, this was alarming. An entire ecosystem had begun to change under the humans' hands, and it was only the beginning. The colony itself thrived amid the chaos. Humans celebrated small victories, successful harvests, repaired equipment, new shelters, and increasing energy reserves. Children played among structures that had been built to survive storms, while adults continued working tirelessly to expand and improve the colony. There was laughter, hope, and a remarkable sense of community, even in the face of constant danger. To outsiders, the resilience of the humans was extraordinary. To the aliens, it was beginning to feel dangerous. The tipping point came when humans attempted a massive project to secure the colony against an unusually powerful storm system. They constructed a series of reinforced barriers along the cliffs, designed to redirect the storm's winds and prevent flooding. The project involved massive amounts of rock, explosives, and human effort. When the storm finally arrived, the system worked, buildings survived, crops were protected, and human lives were safe. Yet the aliens' monitoring systems detected widespread disruption, landslides, altered wind patterns, and new water flows that changed the surrounding environment permanently. While the humans celebrated their victory, the emissaries realized that the humans' instinctive survival strategies were reshaping entire regions of the planet, often without intention. As the colony grew, so did the humans' influence on the environment. What had begun as small survival adaptations now became large-scale interventions. They built bridges across ravines, canals for irrigation, and energy conduits that cut through previously untouched lands. Even simple acts, like planting crops in new locations or moving animals for domestication, had far-reaching effects. The aliens began to document what they called unintended environmental consequences, caused by humans' relentless drive to survive. The term captured both admiration and alarm. The humans were capable of brilliance, but their actions were becoming dangerous on a planetary scale. The aliens' attempts to limit the impact were often frustrated by the humans' ingenuity. For instance, one alien technician tried to deploy a containment system to prevent flooding in a valley. The humans, seeing it as inefficient, modified the system, diverting water in ways that maximized crop growth, but also increased soil erosion downstream. The aliens realized that no amount of guidance could completely control the humans. Their methods were not malicious. They were adaptive, efficient, and sometimes reckless, but the results were undeniable. They were reshaping the planet in ways that no other species had managed. During this period, Mara became a central figure in coordinating large projects. She understood both the need for human innovation and the risks involved. She tried to balance survival with caution, using her experience to guide the settlers, yet even she could not foresee all consequences. Small mistakes, when multiplied across the colony's expanding activities, created cascading effects. A redirected river that fed a crop field caused downstream wetlands to dry up. Explosions that revealed mineral deposits destabilized cliffsides. Each incident was minor when viewed individually, but taken together, they painted a picture of an environment being transformed by human hands. One of the most striking examples occurred when the humans discovered an underground cavern filled with mineral-rich deposits. They began excavating it to supply materials for energy storage and construction. The process required controlled blasts and the removal of massive amounts of rock. Initially, the emissaries monitored carefully, expecting minor disturbances, but the excavation caused a chain reaction of structural failures underground. Small earthquakes shook parts of the colony, and alien monitoring stations registered significant geological shifts. The humans, however, remained focused on the task, improvising to ensure their work was safe for themselves, unaware of the larger environmental disruption. Despite these events, the humans' resilience was undeniable. They adapted to every challenge, learned from every failure, and improved systems faster than the aliens could predict. Their actions were often chaotic, but they produced results. Crops grew where none should have survived. Water systems functioned despite harsh conditions, and energy grids operated efficiently. The aliens could not deny the humans' brilliance, but the cost was becoming clear. Their survival strategies were now having devastating effects on the planet itself. Over time, the humans' impact began to extend beyond immediate survival. Areas that had once been untouched were now altered, valleys reshaped, forests cleared, water channels redirected, and mineral deposits exhausted. Alien observers noted that ecosystems had been permanently modified and native species displaced. Humans had not intended to cause destruction, but their methods, honed for survival on a harsh world, did not account for balance. The colonists were focused on thriving, not preservation. To the humans, every adaptation was necessary. To the aliens, every adaptation was a warning sign. The humans had transformed large portions of the planet without fully realizing it. Their ingenuity and drive had enabled survival against impossible odds, but the consequences were growing impossible to ignore. The aliens recognized that the colony's expansion, energy projects, irrigation, and mining had created what could only be called environmental devastation. The planet itself was reshaped, ecosystems disrupted, and alien monitoring stations recorded levels of disruption previously unseen. Humans were thriving, but at a cost that no one had predicted, and yet the humans remained unaware of the full extent of their impact. They celebrated growth, survival, and ingenuity, while alien observers noted the destruction unfolding around them. It was not malice, but instinct and necessity that drove humans to reshape their world. Their survival strategies, honed through centuries of overcoming harsh environments, were proving both effective and dangerous. By the end of this phase, it was clear that the humans' presence on the planet was no longer a small colony struggling to survive. They were a force of nature, unstoppable in their determination, and the devastation they caused would become the defining feature of this chapter in their story. The humans' extraordinary adaptability and relentless drive had ensured survival and prosperity for their colony, but the ripple effects of their actions had begun to ripple through the planet. What had started as simple survival was now a story of transformation, disruption, and the raw power of a species that refused to be contained. The galaxy was about to witness how the humans' Deathworlders could shock entire worlds without even intending to. The humans had survived the harshest conditions imaginable and had transformed their barren, hostile planet into a functioning colony. Crops thrived where none should have grown, energy systems worked beyond expectations, and shelters protected them from storms and environmental extremes. Yet, as the alien emissaries observed from above, the changes the humans had made were undeniable. Entire regions of the planet had been reshaped, ecosystems disrupted, and the delicate balance of nature altered. The term devastation began to appear frequently in their reports, not as a judgment on intent, but as a description of the scale of the impact humans had caused simply by surviving. First, that humans were unaware of the wider consequences of their actions. For them, every excavation, every diversion of water, and every energy project was a necessity for life. Their focus had always been immediate survival, ensuring that families had food, that shelters stood firm against storms, that water was clean and energy was reliable. They had never considered that the very methods that allowed them to thrive might have ripple effects beyond the colony. The concept of environmental devastation was alien to them. Their mindset had been honed for adaptation and problem-solving under extreme conditions, not for restraint. The alien emissaries began to take more deliberate action. They attempted to create containment zones, areas where the humans' influence could be monitored and managed. They established satellite monitoring networks, sent additional probes, and even tried to advise humans on minimizing environmental disruption. But the humans' ingenuity and relentless drive made containment extremely difficult. When the aliens suggested diverting certain projects or slowing the pace of expansion, humans would adapt the suggestions to suit their immediate survival needs. Sometimes, the aliens' advice was incorporated in ways they did not expect. Other times, it was ignored entirely. The humans were uncontainable, and every day, their influence on the planet grew stronger. One of the most striking examples of this occurred with the colony's mining operations. Humans had discovered a vast underground network of mineral-rich caverns, essential for sustaining their energy systems and constructing new technology. To access the minerals, they employed controlled explosions, digging, and improvisation techniques that had been refined over decades of survival on hostile worlds. Each blast was carefully calculated to ensure safety for the workers. But the cumulative effect on the underground system was enormous. Tunnels collapsed, seismic readings spiked, and alien environmental sensors registered changes that could have catastrophic consequences in the long term. Yet the humans did not see catastrophe. They saw opportunity. The resources they extracted allowed them to improve their colony in ways previously impossible. securing water, energy, and shelter more effectively than ever before. The alien emissaries documented everything, often with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. They had never witnessed a species that could, without intention, cause such large-scale environmental change simply through adaptive survival techniques. To them, humans were a paradox, fragile in appearance, yet overwhelmingly powerful in effect. Every action, no matter how small, could trigger a chain reaction. A diverted river that improved irrigation also dried wetlands downstream. A cleared valley for farming displaced native creatures. Even planting new crops altered the balance of soil nutrients in ways that would affect the surrounding terrain for years. The humans were a force of nature, unknowingly rewriting the ecology of an entire world. Despite the environmental disruption, the humans' daily lives continued with remarkable normalcy. Mara and her team worked tirelessly, balancing immediate survival needs with long-term planning. Children played and learned practical skills. Adults continued building and repairing, and families cared for each other with a resilience and resourcefulness that had defined their species for generations. There was laughter amid hardship, creativity in every corner, and a sense of community that no alien interference could dismantle. The humans were thriving, oblivious to the scale of the devastation their survival had caused. The next critical phase of the story involved the humans' interactions with the native life forms. Although the planet had few large creatures capable of threatening humans, smaller organisms existed, some previously unknown even to the alien observers. Humans, curious and practical, began domesticating certain species for food, labor, and companionship. They modified environments to suit these animals, creating controlled habitats, feeding systems, and shelters. While these adaptations ensured the survival of both humans and domesticated creatures, the natural balance for wild species shifted. Some populations declined, while others grew unchecked. Again, the humans were unaware of the broader consequences. They were focused on practical survival, not ecology. As months passed, the scale of human influence became impossible to ignore. The colonies had expanded, energy systems multiplied, and agriculture covered vast areas. Previously untouched cliffs, valleys, and riverbeds had been altered, reshaped, or redirected. Alien emissaries reported that the humans' activities were now affecting weather patterns and soil stability on a planetary scale. Regions that had once been barren now supported crops, settlements, and infrastructure, but at the cost of natural landscapes and ecosystems. The humans' survival instinct, once a testament to resilience, had become a driver of transformation and, in some ways, destruction. The aliens began to realize the full implications of human presence. They convened councils, discussing how a species could unintentionally alter entire worlds simply by surviving. They do not act maliciously, one emissary noted, yet their effect is catastrophic. Their intelligence and adaptability are unmatched, but so is their unpredictability. It became clear that humans could not be controlled or contained. Attempts to guide them were only partially effective. Their instinct to adapt and innovate overrode any external instruction. The more the aliens tried to manage the situation, the more they were forced to accept that humans would always act according to their own logic. Meanwhile, life within the colony flourished. Humans continued to innovate at a remarkable pace. They developed new energy storage systems, expanded their agricultural networks, and constructed shelters that could withstand the most extreme storms. Mara often marveled at the speed of progress. She knew that survival required constant adaptation, but even she could not have imagined the scale at which humans were capable of transforming their environment. Every project, no matter how risky, was approached with careful planning, intuition, and the confidence that had been honed through generations of survival. The culmination of these efforts came with the construction of the Great Canal System, a network of water channels, designed to provide irrigation, water storage, and energy generation simultaneously. The project required enormous coordination, ingenuity, and risk-taking. Humans dug channels through rocky terrain, constructed reservoirs, and rerouted water flows in ways that had never been attempted before. The result was spectacular. Crops flourished, energy systems operated at peak efficiency, and water scarcity became a manageable problem. Yet the aliens' monitoring systems recorded massive environmental shifts. Natural riverbeds were permanently altered, underground water flows were diverted, and the balance of ecosystems changed irreversibly. The humans had achieved a triumph, but the cost was enormous and largely invisible to them. Through all of this, the humans remained unaware of the galactic attention they had attracted. Reports from alien emissaries were transmitted to distant planets, describing a species that could survive, innovate, and thrive in ways no other had managed. Scientists, historians, and strategists across the galaxy began studying the humans as a case study in resilience, adaptability, and planetary impact. They were called Deathworlders, a species that could survive anywhere, defying expectations and reshaping worlds without intention or malice. The humans themselves were oblivious, focused on their daily lives, unaware that their every action was being documented as legendary. Even as the aliens struggled to manage the consequences, the humans continued to demonstrate remarkable creativity. They built hybrid energy systems, created new agricultural techniques, and found ways to protect themselves from storms, earthquakes, and resource shortages. Each success built confidence, each failure taught lessons, and each innovation ensured their survival. They were no longer merely surviving, they were mastering the harsh environment and thriving in ways that had never been seen before. Yet every achievement carried unintended consequences for the surrounding world. As years passed, the humans' reputation grew. The SOS that had once called for help became a symbol of their extraordinary adaptability. Alien civilizations debated the implications. A species that could survive anywhere, alter environments on a massive scale, and thrive under conditions that should have destroyed them. Some feared humans as a potential threat. Others admired their ingenuity and resilience. Across the galaxy, the humans' actions became a cautionary tale as well as a source of fascination. Within the colony, life remained focused on practical survival. Mara and other leaders worked tirelessly to maintain order and efficiency, balancing innovation with safety. Children grew up learning skills essential to survival. Adults continued to adapt and improve systems, and families relied on each other in ways that strengthened the social fabric. The humans' survival instincts, creativity, and adaptability remained the driving force of daily life. Yet the world outside the environment, ecosystems, and alien monitoring systems bore the mark of their presence. Transformed forever by actions taken in the pursuit of life, the humans had achieved something extraordinary. They had survived, thrived, and reshaped an entire world, all while remaining largely unaware of the scope of their impact. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and relentless drive ensured that they could face almost any challenge. At the same time, their survival strategies had created devastation on a planetary scale, altering ecosystems, redirecting water flows, and transforming the environment. The humans had become a force of nature, unstoppable and unpredictable, admired and feared by those who observed them from afar. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of the death from a simple SOS signal calling for help to the thriving, transforming colony. The humans had proven that survival was not just about endurance, it was about ingenuity, adaptability, and the ability to overcome any obstacle. They had shocked the alien civilizations not through malice or aggression, but simply by being themselves, resilient, resourceful, and unstoppable. Their story became a legend, a reminder that life, in its most determined form, could thrive even in the harshest conditions, leaving a permanent mark on every world it touched. In the final analysis, the humans remained the same in their own eyes, settlers striving to survive, to protect their families, and to make their harsh world livable. Yet for the universe watching, they had become something far greater, a species that could endure anything, adapt to any challenge, and, without intending to, change entire worlds. The SOS that began it all had grown into a story of triumph, transformation, and the unstoppable force of life, leaving the galaxy forever aware of the Deathworlders and the devastating beauty of their survival.